Today I'm going to be breaking down just how difficult it's been to be able to try to start building here on the Hopeful Homestead. How's it going, guys, and welcome to yet again another episode of Coffee Talk. My name is Chad and this is the Hopeful Homestead. And as many of you know, I'm sure, you're out here right now at my campsite that I built next to my little tiny cabin on wheels out here on my family's property that we're calling the Hopeful Homestead. 21 acres of beautiful South Florida countryside that we're extremely excited to be able to start building our forever home on here over the next 12 months. It has been an absolute marathon. And not only a marathon, but a marathon with which you end up coming close to the finish line and the goalposts for the finish line move another mile away. You get close to that finish line again and the finish line moves another mile away. For the past 3 years now, it seemed like we've just continually chased this unicorn, this fugazi pixie dust dream that is never going to actually materialize. And if you had told us 3 years ago when we sold the home that we loved so much to be able to buy this property and pursue this dream that it was going to be 3 years later and we wouldn't have even broken ground, I don't know that we would have done it. And you know, maybe God knew that, and maybe that's why God has taken us on this journey the way that he has, to be able to make sure that we actually follow through with it, because we're so deep into it now that we wouldn't want to quit. But at the same time, there's been many moments throughout this process where we've come real close to just throwing our hands in the air and saying, forget it. I'll just tell this as a linear story because there's really no other way to do it. Almost 3 years ago now, in the spring of 2023, we decided around Mother's Day that we were gonna actually put our money where our mouth is. My wife and I have had this dream for years and years now of being able to, either renovate or build a farmhouse out in the countryside and start a farm, start a homestead, and live off the land a little bit and have an awesome, wholesome lifestyle for our little girls to grow up in. And for whatever reason, we just decided around Mother's Day of 2023 that we wanted to put it into action and actually do it, because ironically, this piece of property, this 21 acre piece of land, was something that we had discovered on Zillow a couple of years prior to that. So, we're talking 5 years now almost since we've discovered this place. And my wife was actually pregnant with our second daughter at the time that we found it. We had just bought our first home. We had always been renting prior to that, and we had just bought our first home, and we loved that house, but we had renovated it and we were living there. My wife got pregnant and we were about to have our baby. And we took this picture, we discovered this land, and I was like, you gotta come see this place, it's incredible. And we came out here and we stood on the road up there at the front of the property, and I have this picture of my wife in front of the front gate looking out at the land, and she's got her hands on her hips and a big old pregnant belly. And what's ironic is that we ended up naming our daughter Autumn Hope. And we did that because the journey with our second daughter was a very difficult one. It was a very difficult time being able to actually get to the point of having a baby, for us from a health standpoint with our second daughter. And then the pregnancy was a nightmare with her. So we named her middle name Hope because she was representing hope for us for having another child. And little did we know that we would end up naming this property the Hopeful Homestead. And we have this picture, 2 years prior to us buying the land, with my wife pregnant with Autumn Hope in her stomach, looking out at the land, just dreaming. And I love that picture because it just represents everything. It's a huge amount of foreshadowing there. And the fact that 2 years after that, this land was still available and was a good price. And we had earned quite a bit of equity in our home after that we renovated. We bought the worst house on the best block. We bought it in a nice neighborhood that was a house that needed renovations, and we did that. We timed it perfectly with COVID, and all the influx of people moving to Florida jacked the prices up, and we had a ton of equity in the house we were able to use when we sold that house to buy this land. And being Christians, we prayed about this, and we felt like it was the direction the Lord was leading us, and we felt confirmation about it when we listed. We didn't even list. We had our realtor getting ready to list our house for sale online, and we got a full price offer before we even made it to market. And that, to us, was like a big green light, a big open door that, because we didn't know we were gonna have to try to sell the house before we would know, because we needed the equity out of the house to be able to buy the land. So we had to go out on a leap of faith and say, Lord, we feel like this is the direction we want to go. We really don't want to lose our house unless it means that we can actually get this land, this lot, because it's so rare to find 21 acres of beautiful countryside here within, a half hour of the beach in South Florida. That just doesn't exist, especially for the price we found it for. And we were going out on a limb, taking a leap of faith and hoping that we would sell our home in enough time to be able to get the profit of the equity to be able to buy the land. And the fact that we were able to, it was literally like within 24 hours of deciding to sell that we got a full price offer on our house. So we felt like, man, okay, God, you are on our side. This is it. This is going to work out, and this is going to be fast. Not so much. We were able to sell, and we were able to put in a full price offer on the land, and we got it. We closed by August of 2023, and the land was ours. We were absolutely elated. And it was at that point that everything started to become difficult, because we got a land loan to buy this. We had be able to put a huge down payment towards the land loan of buying this property. So we had a lot of equity in the land right away, which we were excited about. But then trying to find a bank to be able to build with a construction loan became an impossibility. Trying to find a contractor became an impossibility. For the next couple of years after that, we had an original contractor we were going to deal with that was giving us pricing of almost $450 to $500 a square foot to build, and we were like, that seems really expensive. And we're not trying to build any crazy mansion, but building a normal 4-bed 3-bath house was going to cost a lot of money at that price point per square foot. And so we ditched that guy, and we found another guy who came recommended to us, who seemed like a good guy. He met me out here. I felt confident about him. He seemed like a good person. He quoted us that he could do what we were wanting to do for $300 a square foot, which still seemed a little pricey, but I get it. It's South Florida. There's hurricane codes you have to meet. More expensive to build down here. And obviously this was right after COVID ended, so inflation was going crazy and cost to build was going up. I understood that. But $300 a square foot sounded reasonable. And we were like, all right, we hired an architect. So we went through the process of custom designing a home, custom designing a guest house, custom designing the whole layout for the property. We spent almost 8 months designing a home and a guest house and designing everything for this property. And then at the end of that, our contractor gave us an official bid based on current price points, and his bid went up from $300 a square foot to $550 a square foot. And I just remember thinking, like, I was just blindsided. I was like, man, did this guy actually pull one over on us? I mean, how could he do that? He seemed like such a good guy. He was recommended by a family friend. There was nothing that gave me a red flag, and I'm good about picking up red flags for people who are trying to pull one over on you. And so I thought, well, maybe this is just how much it costs now, and this is the best he can do. And so we start pursuing it, and we think, well, maybe we're also thinking from a faith perspective that the Lord is going to make it work. He's going to open the doors, and we felt like He was on our side with how quickly everything transitioned to be able to sell our home and buy the land. So this must be part of what the Lord is doing. That's what we're thinking. And the whole time I'm spending hours and hours and hours out here praying, praying at night about this. I'm constantly seeking Jesus' will when it comes to what we're doing out here. And I was open the entire time for a change of heart. If we were supposed to change direction, I was open to that. But I never felt that. I felt like we were being led down the path we were supposed to be led down. And so at the point we were told 550 square foot, I told him, well, we're going to need another tax return because our nature of our income, we're business owners. When it comes to qualifying for bank loans, everything's measured by your tax returns. So I told our contractor, I said, at that expensive high of a price hike, we're going to have to wait for another tax return because we were making a lot more money in that year than we were the previous couple of years, and we needed to have it on the books for being able to qualify. And so we waited another 6 months with nothing happening, fully designed house and property, and we waited 6 months, and we get to the point where we get our tax returns. We approach the contractor, because in order to approach the bank, you got to have your tax returns and your income verified, but then you also got to have a signed contract from the builder. So we approach the builder and our contractor, and he then increases our price by another $200,000. It was going to end up being close to 600 a square foot at this point. And I was saying, at this point, I told him that I felt insulted. I was like, this is getting ridiculous. We're not building a mansion here. This is not even factoring, like, some people would tell me, well, you're trying to bite off a lot, with this 20-acre property. I was like, we already own the 20 acres. We already own the land. That's not a part of this cost. This is just an astronomical amount of money to be able to build the house by itself. So we just got to the point where we said, we got to fire the guy. We got to, and that was a pretty semi-nasty, breakup that happened with the contractor. And it was awkward because, the architect we had used was recommended by him, and they were kind of friends. But we even got confirmation from the architect privately that his price point at 550 plus a square foot was excessively high, and that she didn't agree with that price point. So we felt validated in knowing that, okay, we were right in firing him. And we ended up finding another contractor that our neighbor of the land where we are here just built, and they're living there now, and they had a contractor that built their home in 9 months and did it for way less money than what we were being quoted for our house. So I approached them, and those guys have been amazing through this whole process, and they actually were able to give us a price point of in the 400s a square foot. So the cost dropped dramatically. Still not anywhere near the original 300 square foot that we designed everything and based everything on when we were, budgeting for the project. But, it was quite a bit of savings. So we were excited about that. We get his official bid. We get all of it priced out. We go back to the bank that, the same bank that we have the land loan through, that has been with us for 2+ years at this point. And this is now back this past August, September timeframe, just a few months ago. And so we approach the bank again and we say, hey, we're ready to go ahead and pursue the construction loan. We've crossed all our T's, dotted all our I's. We feel confident with our income qualification capability. We have good credit, and we found a good contractor, and we've got the plans paid for, everything ready to go. We've even got permits paid for and ready to go. So the bank, literally all you need to do is just green light the project so that we can move forward. We get enter underwriting with the bank, and we spend 2 months in underwriting. And then in October, the bank tells us, because part of what the bank had been telling us for over 2 years that we based everything off of with our decision making, was that they didn't need any reserves in the bank. So, with construction loans, if you're not familiar, banks will sometimes require that you have a certain percentage of the construction budget in the bank as reserves. You don't have to spend that money on anything, but they just want you to have it in the bank as a reserve in case anything goes wrong and you need to be able to foot the bill for something that the bank didn't pay for. And so one of the perks of this bank we were going to use was that they didn't require any reserves. And that was a huge deal. We have this in writing, and we were excited about that. Also, this bank was going to be able to allow us to use what's called your future assessed value, the value of your finished property. Once everything's completed and done with construction, what the value of the property is, then they'll be able to lend you your loan balance based on that future value, meaning the bank will only lend you 80% of the value of the cost to build. So if your future assessed value is going to be so high with a lot of equity after you finish constructing, then that 80% of the value of the property might actually be more than the cost to build at that point, because of the finished product having so much equity. So that was, based on all of our research, very, very plausible for what it was going to cost for us to build, mixed with the value of what we had in the land, mixed with what comps were selling for in the area. We were confident, okay, this sounds great. We can do this without having to bring any money to the table when you close on the construction loan. We were going to be able to, based on what the bank was telling us for 2+ years, be able to come to the closing table for the construction loan with no money in reserves and no money down as a down payment. We were being led by this, and we thought this was like ordained by the Lord, because this is the way to make this happen. And we were excited that we had a bank that was telling us this was possible. So we get to the point where we're 2 months into underwriting, and then this bank suddenly contacts us and says, hey, actually, our loan terms have just updated and changed, and now we require that you have 50% of your construction budget in the bank in reserves. And we won't use your future assessed value anymore towards your loan to value ratio. And I remember thinking, what? You've got to be careful. You've been telling us this. And I started to push back. And then the lady had a little bit of an attitude with me and saying that we shouldn't have gone so deep into this process without getting pre-qualified first. And I told her that the original loan officer we were communicating with 2 years prior, I have it in writing, and I forwarded her the email of proof that he had told us in order to get pre-qualified, we needed to have a signed contract with a builder. We needed to have finished, spec'd out, completed, engineer sealed and stamped floor plans that were designed by an architect, and we needed to have 2 to 3 years of tax returns. We had the tax returns, and we did all those other things. It took years to be able to get all those other things checked off. And now she's telling us that we should have gotten pre-qualified before that. How is that possible when the bank was telling us that we needed to have these things to be able to get pre-qualified? And I started to feel like we were just caught in a never-ending loop of chasing our tail. And in order for this person to be able to have what they need to approve us, they needed to have something from this person. And this person, in order to be able to give them that, needed to have something that we could only get from them. So it just felt like we were constantly unable to make any progress because no one's willing to do anything. And so this bank obviously now is not an option. We have to go back to square one and find a new bank. And so we go out and we find a new bank that seems promising. And this bank only requires 10% reserves in the bank, which is not too bad. So we think, hey, we could save that up. We already have some savings. We could save that up a little bit more in a few months' time. Let's do that. So we spend a couple of months saving for that. And now we have that reserves in the bank. And so we're ready to rock and roll for that. And this bank is willing to use the future assessed value towards the loan to value ratio. So we're excited. All right, and this is gonna work. We go approach the bank. They say we're good to go. And they say we're gonna order the appraisal now for the future assessed value. And then we go into underwriting and the appraisal comes back at an amount that ends up being far less than what we thought it was gonna be. Based on all of the comps, there are comps in the area that have sold for more money than what this appraisal was valuing our future assessed value at. There are comps that have sold for more than that with similar homes on fewer acres. So I don't understand how they came to that, but we're at the mercy of this one appraiser that just makes a decision on the whim that honestly I think is wrong and doesn't make any sense, but we're screwed at that point. So we're like, well, great, now we're screwed again. We don't know what to do. So it doesn't even matter because now we're gonna need a huge down payment on top of the 10% reserves to be able to make it work. And it got to the point where we were like, well, this isn't gonna work. What are we gonna do? And so we started to realize that we were chasing a unicorn with this house, and the true cost to build with a custom home that is actually, none of it's prefabricated. It's just a completely custom built home we were realizing was just not in the cards in today's world in South Florida. Unless you're just absolutely loaded, filthy rich with, millions in the bank to be able to pay for stuff with cash, you can't do it. You have to get something that's at least partially prefabricated to keep the cost down. And so we found this other company that we're really excited about that makes modular homes. And this company can make a modular farmhouse that ironically, they have a model that's called the Homestead. And it's already pre-styled with white siding and a black metal roof and a big porch. And this modular home builder said that we could go into their floor plan and move walls around and change it to be whatever we want. So we spent a whole weekend playing with the floor plan and got it to where we could kind of make it almost exactly like the floor plan of the custom home we were going to build. And they said we can add a full wraparound porch, we can do all of this great stuff that's exactly like what we were wanting. And the beauty of it being modular is that they build that in their factory over the span of 6 to 8 months, and then they deliver it and assemble the thing in 2 to 4 weeks after delivery. So that timeline is significantly less than what it would have been to build a custom home. It was going to take 9 to 12 months. So this is going to be sooner. And the best part is it was going to cost less than half the amount of money it was going to cost to build the custom home. And so we approached the bank and told them this, and they said, this is fantastic news. And we already have more than enough in the bank for reserves to be able to have the 10% for construction. And so the bank says, we're ready to rock and roll. We just need to get the engineer plans from your modular home company, and we can start the loan process again. So that's where we are right now. We are getting this modular company to sign a contract with them. We're excited about it. They are a Christian company that has really been really great. They're actually the same company. The reason we knew about this company is they're the same company that's going to be building our barn. We were already planning on building a modular barn for very, very cheap. And they've really well reviewed online, and this company was going to do that. And they had a sister company that builds modular homes, and that's how I found out about them and found this whole option out. And so that's where we are now. We're going to have a Christian company building our barn and building our home. And the price that we get quoted includes delivery, assembly, everything. And the beautiful part about it is they deliver the home and assemble it, finishes included. Everything's done. There's nothing left for our contractor to do. Our contractor only has to worry about prepping the site and the foundation for them and hooking up the utilities. They deliver a fully finished product. So I am ultra excited about this. We're going to be able to save tons of money and actually be able to do this finally. And we're hoping we get these plans back from this modular company quick so we can give them to the bank and be ready to rock and roll here starting 2026. Now we're hoping January of 26 we'll close on a construction loan and break ground finally, be able to actually start seeing some change out here and hopefully be living here by sometime next summer or early fall at the latest. Part of me still doesn't believe it's possible after the journey we've been through. It's just been an absolute marathon that has been impossible. And so if this actually works out for cheaper, for less money, for faster timeline, for basically what we wanted to build custom in the first place, It's gonna be awesome. I can't wait. I'm gonna be, as I've mentioned many times in these videos, documenting the process all along the way with some videos about how everything comes together out here. So stick around and subscribe if you haven't already, because it's gonna be a journey. And when we finally have the home built and the barn built and we get to live here, man, what a finish line that will be to finally arrive at. It's gonna be so awesome. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Again, my name is Chad. This is the Hopeful Homestead. And if you feel like sticking around, click on this video. It's all about the stuff we plan to build. I made that video before we had to switch to this modular company. So that's got the mock-ups and design for the original house we were gonna build. But the new home is gonna be pretty much the exact same thing, only improved. So go check that out and you'll see the barn we're gonna build and all the stuff we're gonna do on the property. And I'll see you over there in that video. Thanks, guys.